What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And this one I want to talk about what's going on with Tesla, SPY, the QQQ, and a couple of tickers out there. Break down how the market's looking in the pre-market, why the data that came out is not so good, and what you should be expecting during the first 30 minutes of the day. But before I break anything down with all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in 4 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, guys, so unfortunately, we have some negative news that came out for the markets. Looking at the PPI report, this is a little bit hotter than expected. This is a sign that inflation could be going up very, very soon. So PPI month over month was 0.3% versus the consensus and forecast of 0.2%, a little bit hot. For core PPI month over month, it was 0.3%, hotter than expected. Core PPI year over year was also a little bit hotter than expected at 2.4% versus the consensus of 2.3%. And then year over year, the PPI report was 0.8%. So that's a little bit hotter than expected as well. So PPI inflation is looking like it got a little bit hotter from the producer side. And that tells us that, this tends to be a leading indicator of inflation or CPI. So this tells us that there might be an uptick in CPI going into the next month. There's an increased probability of it. And we have to be very careful because remember, prices start from the wholesalers. The wholesalers, their inflation went up, which means prices could start going up for consumers as well after that. Now, we also have this news right here about the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report, the 5-year inflationary expectations, and etc., all coming out 30 minutes after the market opens. So make sure you're prepared for this. This is going to lead to more volatility 30 minutes after the market opens, and we'll see which way this moves the markets. But what's very important to watch for those, which support and resistance levels end up holding. Now, to add on to this is making the headlines right here. Wholesale prices rose 0.3% in July. That's higher than expected. Not the best of signs for CPI, at least for the next CPI coming out, and also for the markets. So please be prepared for this. This is not good news. To add on to this, there's news coming out about how the S&P 500 was just a little bit up for the week, but it still has been dropping. The Nasdaq is also slowing down a bit, and then the Dow is very, very weak compared to what it was like last week. Inflation did technically cool off on the CPI side, but some things were. The overall CPI was up about 3.2%, and now we're seeing the PPI up a bit. CPI was lower than expected, but PPI is a little bit hotter than expected, and we will see what happens to CPI next month because of this. Not the best of signs. Anyways, let's talk about the market now. How are things looking? I'm going to break down some very important things. So the way the market's moving, right, it's based off some very, very critical levels. SPY is actually dropping in the pre-market. And don't forget, there's going to be some high volatility 30 minutes after the market opens. Now, looking at SPY, we're testing our critical support right here at this 444 area. And we're actually just barely a little bit below the 200 EMA on the 4-hour time frame, which tends to be a bearish signal. But it depends on if we end up holding below this level. Do we break and hold below 444 on SPY, or does the market get bought up to bounce, right? Because we had this very, very interesting trend right over here. We tend to see a lot of buyers stepping in around this 444 area. And whoops, the 444 area tended to be very critical for SPY. And so far, we're barely testing it. So we're going to be seeing, could the buyers bring us right back into this demand zone and start breaking us above 446? Can they do that? If they manage to do so, you're going to be watching 447.5, 448, and the list goes on. Or do we end up sinking below 444? If that happens, there's that gap down around 442 on SPY that's going to get filled if we end up failing to hold 444, and also if we fail to get bought up after the Michigan Consumer Report comes out. Okay, so keep that on your radar. 30 minutes after the market opens, expect some volatility, and then we're going to be seeing which levels hold on SPY or not. If 444 breaks, this thing is going to sink down. If it manages to balance, you're going to be watching it retest the 445s as resistance, 446.5, then we have 448 above that, then 450 as resistance. So watch these levels very carefully. We will see which one ends up getting the bigger test. And please, please, please watch the market very carefully at these levels. For Tesla, Tesla's in a very critical state right now. If you're bullish on Tesla, you want to see the buyers step in around 242 to bring this thing up to the 243s, which is where we have some resistance. There's 244.5, 245 flats, then we have the 246.5, 247.5, and like 250 resistances. I just named all of them. You're going to be watching those resistance levels on Tesla if it does try to bounce off 242. But if the data is this bad, and the market does not see enough buyers even after the Michigan sentiment report, and the market starts sinking. Tesla's going to be testing 242. It has to hold this. It needs to hold 242. If it fails to hold it, it's going to come down to 240. 240 is going to be critical for Tesla. It has to hold that as well. If this area breaks, it's like 240 to 242 support. If that breaks and Tesla gets below 240, that's going to be a very bad sign, because Tesla's going to sink down to fill the gap all the way down in the mid 230s. Tesla's going to likely drop, in my opinion, to fill this gap to 235 if we break below 240. So let's see if that happens or not. We will see how the market opens. And then don't forget that for the first 30 minutes, we have some other data coming from the Michigan report. So who knows what that's going to cause. If the market tries to bounce off of it, you're going to be watching resistance levels. If the market keeps sinking, that could be bad for Tesla, and we're going to be watching if 240 holds. If 240 breaks, Tesla's going to sink lower, unfortunately, and we're going to be watching support around 235. Okay, so those are going to be some important levels. Make sure you watch this chart very, very carefully. We will see if Tesla could hold or not. Finally, for Apple, Apple's also sinking a little bit. So we're going to be watching if it could hold very close to about 177. If that breaks, we could see this thing actually get closer to 175. There's some support at 176.3, but also 175. If it tries to bounce, you're going to be watching resistance at 178, then 179, and then 180.25. What looks more likely, looks a little bit weak right now looking at the daily chart, so the odds do favor downside, but just to be safe, watch for confirmation based off how we open and etc. Same thing with the triple Q. If the triple Q ends up breaking below 365 at our 50 EMA on the daily, we're going to be watching this thing sink down to 363 and potentially 360. Even 357 is a possibility, but I'm not going to rule that out just yet. If it bounces off 365, we could see it retest 367, 368, the entire zone right there, 369, 370, then 372 as resistance. I believe that it's going to make an attempt to bounce off 365, but it depends on how the market responds to the Michigan sentiment report, and also with PPI coming out. And we will see if this holds or not. I think it's going to make an attempt to hold in the morning, but then it's going to come down to retest 365, and we'll see if that holds or not. If it doesn't hold, the market's going to sink lower. If it does hold, then it is what it is, right? So anyways, that's what I have for this video. I want to keep this one kind of quick because I am a little late today. Have a great day, everyone. Market to the moon as the long term is very bright, and watch your support levels very carefully, especially on Tesla. It has to hold these critical supports. If it does not do so, we could see some downside. And also, be prepared for some high volatility, just like how we saw yesterday. The market makers, the entire market could be very tricky sometimes. They love to trick investors. So just be prepared for some manipulation, be prepared for high volatility, watch support and resistance levels, read your candles to see if we're rejecting at a level or not, and just be prepared by managing risks very well. All right, guys. So thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day. Get ready, watch your levels, and do what you have to do. I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon alongside the whole market as the long term is very bright, and peace out.